Hi guys, welcome back to True Crime Revealed. I wanted to give an update on a murder case that has actually been solved. It was the triple murder of the Oklahoma Girl Scouts, Lori Lee Farmer, aged 8, Michele Heather Guse, aged 9, and Doris Denise Milner, aged 10. Now, these babies were brutally raped and murdered on June 13th, 1977 at Camp Scott in Mays County, Oklahoma. It's definitely a case that not only rocked the city and the state in Oklahoma, but pretty much the nation, just because these innocent girls were just trying to have fun and go camping, and they were brutally raped and murdered on the night at the camp. So for many years, the case was actually not solved because they didn't have enough physical DNA evidence against one of the main suspects. The main suspect being Leroy Hart. So he was actually the main suspect in the case, but because of a lack of DNA evidence testing at the time, remember this is in the late 70s, he was eventually acquitted and they were not able to formally convict him. He did, however, meet his fate when he died in prison for other charges. He actually died of a heart attack. So thankfully, the universe did in fact stop him in his murderous tracks after murdering these 3 baby girls, but he was never really formally convicted. Now, though, because we are in the year of 2022, the Farmers, the mother and father of the little girl in the middle, Lori Lee Farmer, they just kept pressing and trying to have investigators and police look further at the case. So they were able to actually further test the DNA, and it was actually found that Leroy Hart was in fact the murderer, the sole rapist and murderer in the case, and they actually can get some closure now knowing that it was him. So here's a clip of the news story. I'll be back.
We have new information this evening in the 1977 Girl Scout murders that shocked all of Green Country and the nation. No one has ever been convicted, but investigators say new DNA testing has ruled out every single possible suspect except one. 3 young girls, you'll remember, Lori Farmer, Michele Guse, and Denise Milner, were raped and murdered at camp in Mays County. Evidence was recently retested for DNA, and the results are now being made public for the first time ever. News on 6's Reagan Ledbetter has been working on this story for months and has this exclusive information. Reagan?
Lori, Mays County Sheriff Mike Reed has spent the last 9 years digging into this case after Lori Farmer's parents asked him to give the case a fresh set of eyes. Now, he says every single piece of DNA evidence has been accounted for, and he says there's no doubt in his mind that evidence shows Leroy Hart is the killer. Leroy Hart was arrested, then tried, and acquitted for the brutal murders in 1978. Sheriff Reed says DNA evidence wasn't available to the jury in 1978, but if it was, Reed has no doubt Hart would have been convicted.
I pray that the family, there's something that we've done that gives the family a second of something that even resembles closure or acceptance or something. I pray that. But as far as peace, there is absolutely nothing about this case that has given me 1 second of peace. Period.
Reed says the facts go far beyond DNA evidence. He says Hart was a textbook serial rapist who had been convicted of kidnapping and raping 2 pregnant women 10 years before the Girl Scout murders.
That's the kind of stuff that Hart was responsible for.
Hart was given parole after serving just 2.5 years in prison for that crime. Sheriff Reed says the conspiracy theories surrounding this case over the years have been endless, and he agreed to look at this case for one reason: the families. Sherry Farmer has felt the pain of this crime for 45 years. She says she and her husband, Bo, have some peace, but there will never be closure. She spoke exclusively to me a month ago about that pain.
It's a journey I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's shocking. It's different than a death. It's different than a loss because our daughter was murdered. It was intentional. And she died with 2 other little girls that we don't want to forget either.
Now, Leroy Hart died in prison just months after he was acquitted of those murders. He was in prison for another crime.
So, Reagan, a lot of people are going to say, okay, so this evidence is finally conclusive, but they're not willing, investigators, just yet to call it closed. Now, why is that? Well,
first of all, the sheriff wants to emphasize and make it very clear that everything has been tested. There's nothing else out there that hasn't been tested. It's been tested by the best labs out there. There's no new special DNA testing that would give them a more conclusive result. As far as the whole case closed deal, they've decided that the DA's office, the sheriff's office, OSBI investigators, and the families, that's the most important thing, are going to have a group discussion and sit down, and they want to come to a unified 100% decision to either close the case or leave it open. The concerns with closing the case is if somebody maybe has information out there and they don't want it to appear that the case is closed and nothing new can happen, but they're confident in the information they have.
Okay, and this is just a small look at what you've been working on for a month. So when are we going to see this more of this?
Yeah, I'll have a much more in-depth look at this investigation, the evidence, and even into Leroy Hart. Sheriff Mike Reed spent a long time looking into his past, and I'll have much more on that coming up Monday night.
Monday night. We are looking forward to that. Thank you, Reagan.
So yes, now these girls can rest peacefully knowing that their murderer has in fact been exposed. And even though he wasn't formally charged, he did actually meet his fate for the horrific crime that he committed against these 3 baby girls back in 1977. This is a view of the actual camp room where the event took place, where they were bound. They were actually taken out by this monster on my screen, Leroy Hart. And he basically did the unspeakable, raping, sexually assaulting them, and basically murdering the 3 girls. In the middle of the night, their screams were really not heard. Some of the campers kind of heard a little bit of what was going on. They thought they, heard some faint cries here and there. Some of the counselors thought that the girls were just playing, but it was a very, very disturbing murder and case of events that these poor girls had to go through. He was so happy when he was acquitted because he figured he was going to be a free man, but still went to prison for some other crimes that he committed, because remember, he was a mastermind at committing crimes. This was not the first time that he had done this. So when he was actually behind bars, he actually did die from a massive heart attack, which I think was kind of the universe's way of getting rid of what he had done and getting rid of him, essentially, so that he could not do this to anyone else if and when he was released from prison. Now, he was a major suspect for many years, and many people in the community pretty much knew and suspected that it was him, but because there was really no solid evidence for testing that they had against him, he pretty much kind of got away with it, quote unquote, for years, as far as his name not being formally convicted. However, the community kind of always knew that it was probably him. And I'm just really happy that they have finally been able to test the DNA evidence and get the families that are survivors of this catastrophic event that happened to their sweet daughters to know that this monster was in fact behind it. Now, even though he wasn't able to be formally convicted and left behind bars, he has in fact passed away shortly after he committed that crime. So it's good to know that he was not able to go out there and do it to other people as well, which is really good because he is a sick monster and definitely would have done it again if given the chance. But yeah, I'm just so happy that these 3 girls can now rest peacefully knowing that the world knows who did this to them, who claimed their precious young lives way quicker than they should have gone. And ultimately, the surviving parents can now get closure in knowing for a fact that, yes, Leroy Hart actually did commit this actual crime. Now, like Lori Farmer's mother said in the video, in the interview, it's something that will always be with them. It's never going to be right. It's never going to go away. But at least they have closure in knowing that, yes, they got the answers that they were looking for all of this time. So I just wanted to do a quick video update for you guys on this channel. The Oklahoma Girl Scout murders is a true crime case that's always stuck out to me. It is the reason why on this channel it's the first video that I've done, because it's just mind-blowing and heartbreaking that these 3 girls thought that they were going to go to a camp to have a really good fun weekend at the camp and end up being murdered the way that they were. So I'm very happy that it was essentially solved, even though it was pretty much solved years ago, but they never really had the evidence to test and the testing capabilities, but now they actually did have the ability to test it, and this monster has finally been labeled as the true murderer that he is. So that is the video. Solved finally the case of the Oklahoma Girl Scout murders. If you guys like this video, please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next video. Bye now.